Views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. The hosts make no claim to be literary experts, and their opinions are exactly that, opinions. All creative works discussed or reviewed are the intellectual property of the creators of said stories and is being used under the fair use doctrine.
Welcome to Swords and Soulmates, a podcast where we read, watch, and discuss Romanacy stories. I'm one of your hosts, Mari, and with me I have Kelly.
Hey everyone, it's Kelly. We also have Ashley.
Hi, it's Ashley. We also have Jonathan.
What's up? It's JP.
So today we're not really reviewing any book. We're not really talking specifically about a book. We just thought we would get together and share with you guys a little bit about the experiences that we had at the Fabled Fantasy Romanacy BookCon event in Orlando that happened earlier this month. We were all there. It was an event that happened on Friday and Saturday. Kelly and I were there Friday and Saturday, and Jonathan and Ash came on Saturday. We all went to panels. We all did the day stuff, like the talking to the vendors and you know, walking around and seeing everything. We did not do any of the nighttime activities, so we're not really going to talk about those because we didn't have any real firsthand experience about that. I have heard good things about it from people who've gone, but none of us went, so I don't think it's fair to necessarily talk about that. Before we get into that, though, I did just want to say it's hurricane season. Hurricanes have been affecting the Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, all these areas, in addition to maybe other places that you're used to. If you wanted to donate or help, there's, Red Cross is always a good one. World Central Kitchen, WCK.org is always a good one. There are a few like book specific charities and organizations that I've heard about that if you're interested, you may want to look into. First one is called the Bink Foundation. It's BINC, and that stands for Book Industry Charitable Foundation. And they basically help out booksellers, comic book stores, book vendors, that kind of thing who've been affected with emergencies. And they, have helped people in situations like this. We found out about them actually at the con from Lish McBride, one of the authors there. She had been helped by that organization back during Katrina when she was in New Orleans. And I know that the Bink Foundation is helping people in like Asheville, Florida area. So that might be a way if anyone is looking to donate to help out. The other one that I heard about also from Lish McBride, it was a video she did today. It was an interesting idea. It's Libro.fm, which some people use for audiobooks and listening to books, and you pay for the books and everything there, just like you would with Audible. But you can choose a local bookstore to support. She was saying if you wanted to help one of the bookstores or vendors in affected areas, you could always switch out the bookstore that you're supporting to one in an affected area for like the month, and then switch it back to your local one if you wanted to, which I thought was an interesting idea. I hadn't heard anybody suggest. And then the last thing I saw was, and this is an Instagram account, it's a charity that several authors are looking to get together. It's called Romance for Florida, and it's romance authors, and they're accepting donations for like signed books and limited edition things, and then they're going to auction it off, and the money go towards helping people in the Florida area. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, the Instagram account is Romance for Florida. All one word. And that seemed like they had some interesting things they were trying to do. They're going to be accepting submissions from October 16th, I believe, through October 25th. But look at the account and get the full details from there if you're interested. All right. Anything else about that before we get into the con?
No, I think you covered it.
All right. So Fabled Fantasy Romanacy BookCon event. I know it was my first book convention, book con. I think, has anyone else ever been to any book con before?
No,
I'm not.
No.
This is my first as well.
Okay. So I thought maybe we would talk about what our expectations were and then what we thought about it in general. So, I mean, whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I'll go first. I'm going to be really honest. I wasn't expecting nearly as much as it was. I actually regret that we weren't there for Friday. As mentioned, none of us have been to a book con before. I've been reading books, what feels like my whole life. So this was a really fun event. I think I was just expecting, I think I was only expecting like the panel part of it, because that's really how that's really the only notice the app gave us. You know what I mean? The advertising for it, the links for it, the app for it was not very like intuitive. So I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting much out of it. I thought it actually might be a little boring. I thought we might cut out early. I was certainly hoping for it to be, as great as it ended up being, but I didn't expect it to be as cool as it was.
Yeah. Now I agree. I didn't know what to expect. Like, the only convention kind of things I'd done before were like sci-fi fantasy type conventions and like MegaCon, so maybe like comic book and heavy cosplay and those sorts of convention-based things. So I wasn't really sure what to expect out of a book convention. And I know this is their first time hosting this event. And so it's not like there was a lot of history that we could look up and see what other people thought of it or anything. I was expecting like you, I was expecting panels and maybe like a little vendors area with like nothing major. I wasn't really sure what to expect out of it, but I was definitely pleasantly surprised by what it ended up being versus my expectations. What'd you guys think?
I thought it was okay. I was in that same boat where I was not sure what was going to happen when we got there. I wasn't sure if I was walking into a very small, poorly managed venue, or if I was going to walk into a very extremely large, operation. I really didn't know what to expect, and I was surprised. My convention experience is outdoor sports related, so it's like huge, lots of equipment, lots of vendors, and you need like a roadmap to get around. This was a little more intimate, but it was definitely day and a half to 2 day kind of convention for sure. If I had to like break it down in regards like that, it felt like if I had gone to the panels, I would not have. You couldn't do both the panels and conquer the expo area in one day. So
yeah,
it was like pick and choose. Although I did see some videos from the ball, and that looked interesting.
Yeah. What do you think,
Does
Kelly?
that mean it was not a no for you?
The ball?
The ball?
I'm not ball ready.
Not ball
My-
ready?
Like next year.
Yeah, the ball's
next
still
year.
up there. It has not dropped down yet.
It sounds like it should be a warning sticker, not ball ready.
No, ball ready.
Not ball. I'm not ball ready. I could be ball ready. I think it would take me like 2 years to get ball ready, or I would be like hide out in a corner for a little bit, and then like maybe slowly. I might need some liquid courage, when you get to the end of an event, and if you would have told me that the videos would have hyped as many people being at that ball as there were, I would not have guessed that, because as the event starts to close, people want to get out. They don't want to stay longer. And it kind of, it felt like it was like a 180. Like people were just like, it's over. Yay. Let's celebrate. Let your hair down, put your dancing hooves on, and go to town.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a common sentiment at conventions I've been to in other fields, is that there's usually like some kind of party on the last night or whatever. But the conventions I've been to, like in the medical field, there's usually like big parties that are sponsored by some big company, or vendor or merchant or whatever.
So what were your expectations of this con before you went, Kelly?
I mean, I've been to a lot of different conventions related to like fantasy, sci-fi, gaming, and stuff like that. I've been to small regional gaming conventions. I've been to Dragon Con back before it was even called Dragon Con. I've been to Games Day. I've been to all those kind of big conventions. Never really like a book-specific convention. It's always been more of like just general fantasy, general science fiction, whatever type conventions. So I didn't really have a huge amount of expectations as far as going in. I did think I thought there would be more vendors that were selling book merchandise. There were some, but I thought there would be a lot more, honestly.
When you say book merchandise, could you elaborate?
Well, like book adjacent, not selling books themselves necessarily, but like book adjacent stuff. Like there were some that we saw that were selling, like we had the people that were selling coffee that was, inspired by some of the books or whatever. I expected to see a lot more merchants like that selling, book dust covers, book merchandise, official and unofficial merchandise, homemade merchandise, all that kind of stuff. I really expected
more trinkets.
I really expected to see like 10 or 12 booths of people just selling t-shirts.
Accurate. Yeah. I would say that was probably a very good assumption. Like I feel like we should have seen a similar thing. From what we saw, I was excited about it. Did you get good vibes from what you saw, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it being fairly small, but then again, my comparison is to large conventions like Dragon Con and stuff where there's thousands and thousands of people. So even though there was a good bit of people there, it was still small enough that you could go up to the author's table and actually have a, interaction with an author, which was really cool.
I agree. I think that was like the coolest thing for me, because my expectation was that it would be like a lot of other like sci-fi fantasy con stuff you go to, where if you're going to have any kind of interaction with, and I'm doing air quotes here, the talent, which, would be like the artists, the illustrators, the celebrities or whatever, it's behind, a big line or a paywall or a big scheduling thing where you have to schedule things ahead of time. But this wasn't like that. Like you would just walk up and talk to the authors, either the ones that you have read about and you've heard about and you enjoy, and you can tell them, about that, or ones you've never heard of and let them tell you about what they have. And that was really neat. I know that I feel like all of us probably discovered some new authors and maybe got interested in some new books to add to the TBR because of that, because we were able to have these interactions. And I think that because it's authors and you're talking to them like that, it works well that it's a smaller expo area, smaller than you would have at something like Dragon Con. Because we were there 2 days and we did most of our time in the expo vending area. I mean, we did a few panels, but the majority of our time was spent talking to people. And we still didn't get to talk to everybody. Yeah, it was cool. I thought it was really neat that you were able to have that personal interaction with the authors.
Is there an author that you would not have been turned on to, that through that interaction you found yourself saying, you know what, I think I want to read this author?
Yeah, I actually have 4 in mind. The first one was Rose Centuriello. She had the little monstrally cute stuff. So her books basically had, visually as you walk by, it had a cartoony kind of covers on there, and it reminded me of like Legends and Latte. So it was that kind of vibe. And so she does like monster romance, but like cute monster romance like Legends and Lattes, but she does LGBTQ plus stories. Yeah, I ended up getting one of her books, and I'll probably end up reading all of them, but I got one of them. The series is called the Augury University series. So that was kind of neat getting to interact with her. Oh, and she and I both have Princess Leia tattoos, so we bonded over that. And then TB Wise has a monster series that I had not heard of. It's called Monsters of the Divide. And I believe you got her book too, Jonathan. She has like the holiday monster books.
Oh, I think I did. Is that like Pain something or what?
Pain for the Holidays or something like that?
Yeah. I did. I was looking at that.
Yeah, I'd never heard of her before, and so now I've got her books. I'm interested in reading that. Emma Hamm, I had kind of seen on TikTok, but the big book that she's pushing is her most recent book is The Whispers of the Deep, which is like, it's like a monster romance, whatever. It's like a mermaid kind of thing, which I'm generally not drawn to mermaid stories, just in general. Not that I'm against it, they just don't necessarily pull me in. But she also has like a 7 Deadly Sins series, which it's an older series, and I bought 2 of those because they look pretty interesting. And then Lish McBride, which we had a really good interaction with. She was upstairs. She has an interesting sense of humor. She was in the witch panel, was it Spicy Spells and Sultry Tales. And I bought her Hold Me Closer Necromancer book. Purely because of the cover and the title, and then we had a conversation, and I think that's going to be interesting. She seems to have an interesting sense of humor in her books. So I hadn't heard of any, really heard of any of those, and now I've got books from all of them to read. What about you guys?
Ash, how'd you make out?
I'm actually more impressed by the entire shelf of books that Jonathan has now accumulated in the last week. I'm not sure where they all came from. He came home with almost as many books as I did.
Nice.
So that was fun for me. That part was really fun for me. I think I bought a lot of new authors, and that was a conscious decision, right? And I think, the intimacy of the space really allowed for us to have that, one-on-one interaction. And it really was kind of like a sales pitch. And they were like, well, do you want to hear more? And I was like, absolutely, I do. Sign me up. Is there a book club? And even the panels too. I think I was so impressed by Molly Tullis, just like as a human, in the way that she, she presented and communicated and, really engaged on that panel. I'm a fan of her just as a person, although I will very much read her books. She's on Kindle Unlimited, so I'm excited. I was not emotionally prepared for the amount of money that I spent on books there. Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's an opportunity for a bank or a credit card company to offer a credit card that is for book lovers that gets you a 3% cash back when you buy stuff from a book convention.
I would have signed up like a
Absolutely.
Sucker pack me all day.
Target audience.
Yeah. I'll tell you you want to know what I learned, however, is that I need a book whirly cart.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what we needed, you guys.
When we were there Friday, before you guys got there, I had a shoulder strap tote, and Maury filled it completely up with books, and I had to take it out to the car and put it in the car.
Gosh.
Instead of carrying it around the rest of the day.
Had to unload?
Yeah. And then she filled up half of another tote later that day. So.
She's an overachiever.
I just have a hard time saying no. And I'm just like, this is completely going against my whole, trying to work through my physical TBR. So, yeah.
Not today.
I'm surprised my credit card company didn't call me and be like, hey, I'm seeing charge after charge after charge in the same area of Florida. Is your credit card okay?
No, Kelly, they've seen you drop money like that in Orlando before. That was not a suspicious area.
I guess not.
They were like, we see you.
So I was surprised to see the airbrush people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Everybody, please.
So then
the amount of hobbies this man came home with.
So
yeah.
I'm proud to say that I am now an airbrush owner.
It almost beat us home, you guys.
Wow.
He had ordered it before he left the building.
Yeah. So you guys plan on going next year?
I think so.
Yeah, I had a good time. I had enough time to want to go back for 2 days next year.
Yeah, we were talking about it. We haven't booked anything just yet. I'm not convinced that the hotel dates have dropped just yet, because usually those are only a year out. But some websites show sold out, some don't. So I'm not sure. But it's later in the month, right?
Yeah, it's October 25th next year, whereas it was October 3rd this year. So it is towards the end of the month.
That means it'll be busier.
Full on Christmas season then, huh?
No.
You wish. But they're probably trying to avoid the intensity that is hurricane season. We're lucky that it was last weekend, actually.
Right.
They probably would have canceled.
Yeah. Yeah, we booked out for next year, so we're gonna go Friday and Saturday. I agree. I want to have some of the books I have from these authors that I want them to sign. I'm gonna remember to bring them because I had a Grace Draven book I wanted to get signed, and she had the same book there, but I'm like, I'm not gonna buy another copy of the same book I have at home. I'm just not. So I got another random book of hers, the second book in another series of hers that I haven't read, but I will. I got that and had her sign it. Yeah, so I would say for anyone planning to go next year who's never been to a book con event or who's never been to this one, I would say basically it's in a hotel. It's very like enclosed. So once you get into like the con area, you're in Romantasy book land. Everyone there is there for the same thing you're there for. I thought the registration was super smooth. It was very easy. I was anxious ahead of time of how that was going to go, but I thought it was super smooth. I would say bring the little rolly cart with whatever books you may have from these authors that you want to get signed, because you're going to be able to like most likely walk up to them and talk to them and get them to sign it. But they will also have books there that you can buy and have signed. And yeah, I think the balancing act is like looking at the vending area and the books and the authors with like the panels you want to take and deciding where you want to go. I would say one thing I would let people know about the panels is I know that ahead of time some of those panels were like sold out or booked out. But if you just wait till right before the event, there were several empty chairs. And so I think once they had everyone go in that was going to go in, you could walk in. There were several panels we were at that were supposedly sold out, but they were empty chairs there. So they were letting people in, like last minute. Once it started, you could like walk in and get a chair. I don't think there was anything where they were turning people away from any panels that I saw.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
What did you guys think of the panels?
I could have passed on them. I'm not going to lie. It was good in the beginning of them where it was like, hey, I'm so-and-so and this is what I do. But then it was more like, I thought we'd get to the first one that we all went to as a group. There was like one question that was like from the crowd, but that was the only one I heard throughout any of the panels.
Yeah, they all ran long.
Yeah, I was hoping for more like audience interaction, FAQs kind of thing too, right? Where you could ask questions. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have been good too. I'm about 50-50. I think about half the panels I went to were interesting and I would do them again. The other half I would skip. I think that happens everywhere. And that I will say it's completely okay to like get up and walk out of a panel. Like nobody takes that personally. They don't know why you're leaving. You may have a phone call you need to take. You may have something else scheduled, whatever. As long as you don't make a big production out of it, there's nothing wrong with, getting up and leaving if that panel isn't serving you what you were there for. And you could do something else with your time.
That's a wild thing to say, Mari. I had trouble walking away from a table. And you want me to walk away from a panel of 6 or 8 young, women in their element describing their life's work.
I challenge you to do that next year if there's a panel you're not.
I would not. I would sit there and suffer. I mean, and it wasn't suffering for me. I think it was one and done for me. Like they kind of both felt the same, even though they were titled something different. And I think we got different things out of it, but I don't know that either of the things that we got were what the panel was supposed to be about.
As advertised. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a nice time. I think personally, I would have enjoyed exploring the market a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think, the other stuff that they were doing, like the workshops and such were probably really great for the people who wanted to do it. I didn't have a desire to do it. It was interesting. I would not do it again. It wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not going to be a writer. I'm a reader.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got anything out of them as readers other than to learn about some of those authors themselves and, their practices or, their experiences, which is great. It wasn't overwhelmingly for me.
Yeah. Anything else anybody wants to talk about the con before we maybe go through some of the little audio snippets we did?
I would say that my biggest feedback to the organizers of the convention is that they need to have wider aisles. Because when people, and for good reason, are using the little book roller carts, it does make it difficult to maneuver through the aisles when people are stopping at tables and they have their roller carts and stuff like that. So wider aisles would probably be a very good idea.
Yeah, or if they can't do wider aisles, because if that's the only space they have, then maybe have the whole like one direction. Like you can only go this direction in this aisle, and then so it's a one-way thing. So it's a little bit less of a cluster. People aren't trying to turn around and go 2 directions in one at the same time.
So I think they had the space. They just didn't use it the in that way. So on either side of the aisles towards the end was
empty
it was
space.
empty.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
They could have just you don't have to have an extra aisle, but if you would have given every aisle, if there were 4 aisles and you gave them each 25% of whatever was not used,
it's a little bit more.
It would have made things just wide enough to avoid doing the butt brush with the opposing traffic.
That was my favorite part.
The butt brush.
Yeah, I had a great time. Listen, I'm not a super big people person. Everybody was so pleasant. I didn't have one complaint about and I've heard some horror stories about book cons and stuff before. There was something that happened out west last year that was a complete and utter disaster. People fainting from the lack of available water.
Yeah,
like that kind of stuff.
That was a Taylor Swift concert.
No, it was a book con.
Yeah, it was like some really big one, and it people had to be in line forever. And I heard really bad things about that.
It was the authors had no assistance. Again, there was limited to no accessibility. For people who needed it. It was a real big. It made the rounds on the socials really, really bad. Big authors like Rebecca Yarros had really awful experiences that you would hope that no one would go through, much less these people who are just trying to make to do something for their fans.
Right.
They didn't need to be there.
It didn't feel underproduced. It felt maybe
I thought it was very polite.
Adolescent. It's not a mature event yet. And by mature I mean it hasn't reached its full potential. Right?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
But also in the best way. I thought it was so humble and again just so accessible. I was not expecting that, and it really was my favorite part.
I agree.
It's one of those events that next year we could be leaving it with a totally different outlook on it and saying, man, I wish it was as intimate as it was last year.
Oh, don't say that. I'll be sad.
I know. Me too.
Sorry. Fabled Fantasies, if you're listening,
don't screw it up.
Maintain that intimacy that
pressure.
we're able to enjoy. Use the available space that you have. Awesome. And we're hoping for more. I'll tell you what, I got confused by the upstairs.
Me too. I didn't realize there was an upstairs until my friend Rachel, who was there, randomly mentioned that there's an upstairs. I'm like, oh, there's more. Yeah.
And apparently the tattoo people that were there were booked the entire time, so maybe they should have more tattoo people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would rather have the panels upstairs and the expanse. I would rather
the expo space downstairs.
Yeah, it got a little confusing where to go.
That's
but
a good idea.
Yeah. Rooms and places to go because then the panel would become more intimate if you were, Yeah, you're right. We all signed up for a panel and got there, and 30% of the seats were empty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to know though, with the layout of the hotel, and because there was another convention going on in the same hotel. It looked like a tech industry type convention or something.
Well, I bet they were surprised.
Oh yeah.
Why are there wings and fairy ears here today?
Yeah, I'm sure the cybersecurity people showed up and were like, "Oh my gosh."
I mean, you never know. We might have rocked their world. They might have, come home and be Romanacy fans. You never know.
What a fun time!
You get your tail.
What a time to be alive, you guys.
Right.
I mean, I will say we did learn something very important, and that was when we were at the panel about monster romance, and everyone got into the divergent talking points about monster anatomy. Apparently, the crowd went wild. The entire panel, people that were there for the panel went wild when they started talking about characters with 2 dicks.
Or all the different appendages. So they were talking about
people started standing up and whooping and cheering and clapping, and I was just like, what is going on here?
It's a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, these authors are writing all these monster, characters, and some of them are, have been done before or whatever, but some of them, they're brand new characters they're making up. So they were talking about how they their search history, they're looking up these, animal penis and getting inspiration. It was a good panel. It was called Monster in My Bed. I want to say Kendare Blake was on that, and Emma Hamm and Rose Centuriello and TB Weiss. I think, and if I missed somebody, I'm sorry. But they all were really interesting in like talking about how they come up with things and the different things that they would run into and not even use in their books because they're just weird things. For those that didn't know, that this whole con is 18 plus. And it's a strict 18 plus, no kids.
Oh, yeah. No, not even the littles, like the ones with barely any hearing, cognitive, nothing.
Yeah. All in all, it was a good time. We definitely want to go again. So what we did as best we could, because we did not get a chance to talk to everybody, but we were trying as best we could to get little snippets, audio snippets from as many of the authors and tables and vendors as we could. So we went around and got little snippets from people. We asked them a little bit about themselves, and then we asked everybody what their definition of Romanacy was, because this is Romanacy Con. So I was thinking we could maybe talk about some of those. I know you guys were there for some of those on Saturday, but some of them were just Kelly and me on Friday. Do you guys want to go through some of those?
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
We were able to talk to Abigail Owen. She wrote the Dominion series, which we reviewed earlier this year, The Liar's Crown. And then she has just released The Games Gods Play, which is the book that you guys bought, third version of. And the third book in the Dominion series is coming out November 12th of this year. So we were able to talk to her and get get her to do a little spiel about herself and then ask her what Romanacy meant to her.
Hi, I'm Abigail Owen. I write Romantasy and paranormal romance. I am the author of The Games Gods Play, as well as the Dominion series and the Inferno Rising series. You can find me on my website, abigailowen.com, and from there that takes you to all the different places to buy my books.
How would you define Romantasy?
That is a really hard question because I came up through paranormal romance, which is, to me, a different couple for each book, and you get your more traditional paranormal creatures, the werewolves, the vampires, etc. Romantasy to me started out really more as high fantasy mixes with romance, but I think that is expanding, and so we're getting a lot more real earth, gods. For instance, my book, The Games Gods Play, I would say kind of fits both because it's set in contemporary world, but it's gods, and the world building is more, I would say, epic fantasy feeling. So I think they cross over.
And for those of you guys that recognize her name, she is the author of The Liar's Crown that we reviewed way towards the beginning of our podcast days. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
all right.
On day one, did she wear as fancy a shirt as she did on day two?
She did, I think.
Yep.
'Cause I think that's her go-to uniform. I've been looking at it.
I don't remember. I do know she got super flashy the second day. It was very sparkly the second day. I know I was very overwhelmed, like going there the first day, where it was like, first day, new hotel, new con, new place, new event. And I had to it was funny because I was telling Kelly, I was like, I have to sit here for a minute. I've got to turn my extrovert on. I've got to turn the switch to talk to all of these strangers. So to be honest, I know I was a little overwhelmed the first day for sure. So I could not tell you what she was wearing.
That's exactly what it was. I was not, again, emotionally prepared for that. That was the most talking that I had done in days, in weeks. But again, in the best way, everybody was just so fun.
Yeah. Very sweet, very kind, very welcoming. And not just like in a smarmy salesperson way. Like even if you didn't buy their stuff, they were just happy to talk to you about stuff.
They really were.
Another author that we talked to was Emma Hamm. And she's pretty active on TikTok right now because, like I said, she's got that Whispers of the Deep book that's out. And she was on the Monsters in My Bed panel. If you want to cue up her little snippet, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Emma Hamm. I write monster romance and fantasy romance. If you like two dicks and fishmen, that would be me. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, pretty much anywhere.
This question's going to be, if you feel like answering it, what would you say Romanacy means to you? Or how would you define Romanacy?
Romanacy would be for all the little girls who are obsessed with Beauty and the Beast, that it's the best place to be accepted because nobody's going to judge you for whatever your kink is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, Emma Hamm.
Right?
I've been thinking about this for the past few days. The whole of Disney is Romanacy.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of Disney's Romanacy. Not all of it, but a lot is.
Correct. Yeah, it was just an interesting realization. Somebody turned the light switch on for me, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess Romanacy isn't
So what you're saying is that we were conditioned to love monsters with 2 dicks and fish bodies?
I'm going to be honest, the beast only has 1 dick.
Are you
Do
sure?
you know that?
100%. Yeah, I'm 100% sure. I've seen a bull.
You're convinced that he's a bull. I don't know that he is.
He's got horns. He's furry. Looks like a bull. He's got.
Didn't we
bull
talk
dick.
about this last time?
Hung-
We
Like he
did.
could have been a
Hung like the bull.
minotaur.
I hope he kept complementary elements. It'd be hard to have bull cock and then go back to human cock. You know what I'm saying?
Another author that I had a really interesting interaction with, and I want to say this was Friday as well, but I don't remember, to be honest. The days kind of blended together when it came to talking to people, was Andy Finichel. I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name. I did not recognize her by name. And even when I walked up to her booth, like a lot of the books I was looking at, I didn't really recognize them. And she was telling me about herself and her books and what all she writes. And then she mentioned The Manicure's Mate. And I looked down. First of all, I gave her this weird look. So I'm like, I've read a Manicore Romanacy, like romance book before. And I was sitting there trying to remember if it was the one that she was describing because, you know, memory sucks. And then I looked down and it was like, oh my God, I read this book. I remember it. I enjoyed it. It was a fun book. So she wrote The Manticore's Mate. She wrote a bunch of other books, monster romance, Romanacy, paranormal fiction, etc. And I think she also writes like standard romance and historical romance. But I ended up getting the Manticore's Mate book from her signed, which I completely did not realize that she was that she would be there. Just happened to walk up and talk to her and then realize that book that I'd read. I think we have a little snippet from her as well.
I'm Andy Fenichel. I also write as A.S. Fenichel. Andy Fenichel name writes short monster romance, and A.S. Fenichel writes paranormal, full-length, demon hunters, and witch romance. And you can find me at asfenichel.com.
And if you're comfortable with this, what would you say Romanacy? What would you define Romanacy as? What is Romanacy to you?
So I think Romantasy is otherworldly romance, in my opinion. And I'm borderline not Romantasy, more paranormal, but it's more like alternate history. Especially the A.S. Fenichel books are kind of alternate history.
I would say there's definitely some overlap in a lot of these genres. We kind of tiptoe into both, and it kind of can be multiple genres.
I think the readers are mostly read both. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was fun. That was unexpected. Just because, you know, like what you were saying earlier, Jonathan, you read these books and it's not like you look at the pictures or even really look in depth into the authors of every book you read. So it was interesting seeing somebody there I wasn't expecting to see there. She also writes a series called The Witches of Windsor, which sounds a little bit like it might have some touches of like Stay a Spell, but it's in like London. In Windsor area. It's like a little historical Romanacy kind of vibes. Have not read them, but they seem intriguing. And they're on Kindle Unlimited. Rose Centuriello is one that we talked to that was like, she was off in the corner and she's the one whose covers caught my attention because they looked like Ledges and Lattes. They were cartoons, and it was like it was a sapphic romance is the cover I saw on the first book in the Augury University series, and it was like an orc chickie. So we talked to her if you want to cue that up, Kelly.
I am Rose Centuriello, and I write queer monster romance that is monstrously cute.
And where can people find you? Like what social media?
You can find me at Rose Centuriello on TikTok and Instagram, as well as Threads.
And what would you say Romanacy means to you, or how would you define Romanacy?
I mean, the most simple definition would be obviously romantic fantasy, but I think it is romance that surpasses the regular conventions of a contemporary setting and has magic and beautiful settings and elves and fae and all kinds of wonderful, fun creatures that make it extra special.
We're good? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I like her.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet her, but she sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, I think she seems pretty cool. I got her first book. And there's several of these authors that I've talked to about like maybe doing interviews with us. So she's one of the ones who would be open to it. So if we want to end up reading one of her books down the road, I think it'd be interesting to talk to her. I think she was in, I'm trying to remember if it was one or two. I think it was just one. She's one of the panel. She was in the Monster in My Bed panel that we went to, and she seemed entertaining.
Any two dicks in there? She got any like?
Oh, she does. Yeah, I think so. Because she's got like one of her characters is a Naga, like a snake person. She's, I believe, of Middle Eastern descent, and I think she said that her Naga character has some of those like desert Middle Eastern descent kind of vibes. Like I said, I haven't read them yet, but that's just from her talking.
We may have to explore some double dick books.
Not the snake dick books. That doesn't do it for you. I'm just checking.
No,
sometimes some of the snake ones, like the Naga ones, and some of the dragon ones tend to have double appendages. Yeah.
Tentacles.
And there's tentacles.
Tentacles.
That freak. Two dicks is okay, but not tentacles.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you have is that your hard line there?
There's a
Correct.
There's a boundary, guys. There's a boundary. Sorry.
What's our safe word?
Didn't know we needed one.
So you would be a hard no to Ursula then. Ursula would be like no for you.
Ursula might be the exception.
Oh.
He loves Ursula.
I feel like Ursula got wronged in that whole story. She got the shitty end of the stick.
She's got tentacles. That's all I'm saying.
There's definitely a contract in place.
Oh, so I think female tentacles might be okay for him, just not male tentacles.
Okay.
Most tentacles, male and female. I'm not.
Do they remind you of toes? Is that what it is?
No, I just think I don't like octopus.
Another interesting author we talked to was Lish McBride. She's the one who told us about the Bink Foundation. She's got a book that just released called Red in Tooth and Claw. It's a Western horror. That's how she was describing it. And she was at the Spicy Spells and Sultry Tales panel, and her and Juliette Cross was also at that panel. So her and Juliette Cross were like bonding about their New Orleans days, which is kind of interesting. If you want to cue her up, Kelly.
My name is Lish McBride. I write a little bit of everything. I have trouble staying in my own lane. So I have books that are like contemporary fantasy romance. I have a book, Curses. It's a gender-swapped retelling of Beauty and the Beast. That's like a fantasy romp. Then I have the books like Hold Me Closer that are more kind of urban fantasy horror vibes. And the one coming out on Tuesday, Red in Tooth and Claw, is a frontier era kind of like Western horror with a romance thread, but set with it also has a fantasy element to it, so it's not set in our world. So again, I'm a little all over the place.
Where's the best place for people to find you as far as like social media and whatnot?
I'm the most active on, I think, Instagram and Blue Sky. But if you Google Lish McBride, because there's only one of me. It's a weird name. It works well. You can find me on whatever social you're on. I'm not on Threads, but I'm on pretty much everything else.
And how would you define Romanacy?
To me, Romanacy is romance first with a fantasy element, whereas like a lot of us read fantasy with a romance element and sort of decided that those are the same. But it's the romance is forefront, and then the fantasy is, you could take the fantasy away and it would still be romance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was interesting seeing people's different definitions of Romanacy and how they went about defining it. She had some interesting books. That Curses book that she mentioned is a gender-swapped Beauty and the Beast, where she's the beast and he is like this super charming, like Prince Charming kind of beauty.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then she had the other one that she talked about was Hold Me Closer, Necromancer. I bought it. It looked interesting. I'll let you know if it's any good.
Okay, yeah, keep me posted on that.
Yeah. Oh, we also got to talk to Kendare Blake, who we read her 3 Dark Crowns series. We've done an episode on that. We got to talk to her a little bit and do a little mini interview with her.
Hi, I'm Kendare Blake, and I write dark fantasy with a little bit of romance and also some very bloody books about murder. You can find me anywhere online, but mostly Instagram and Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but only if you add me, at Kendare Blake.
And what's your definition of Romantasy?
So my personal definition of Romantasy is any fantasy with some heavy romantic elements. So where the romance drives the fantasy plot as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be the only driver, but it has to be one of the main ones.
Very cool. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, she was pretty cool to talk to.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet her. She wasn't at her table when we passed by on day 2.
Yeah, that was one of the things we didn't get to talk to all the authors, is because it seemed like when we would make our rounds, a lot of the authors were gone from their table, and then if we came back, they may be there, but then some other ones were gone, so it was definitely tough.
Yeah, you had to do multiple passes, and because some of them are doing panels, some of them are doing like signings, and some of them are just like making their own rounds and talking to people. So
Right.
So we got to talk to Juliette Cross. Actually talked to her twice because she was the first author that we talked to on Friday when we first got there, and my extrovert hat was not quite on yet. And so I
That's
was
fair.
super shy. I got her to sign, or I bought a signed version of her Wraith King book, which I'm reading now. I'm like 80% through it. So I was very excited to do that because I wanted to do that first off because I knew she had said she had a limited amount of them. Juliette Cross is, like we all know, but for listeners, she wrote Wolf Gone Wild that we reviewed earlier this year and liked, the Stay a Spell series. And we'll have a book coming out, a sequel to that series called Southern Charm Books. Rebel Without Claws is the first one. But her newest book that's out right now is the Wraith King series. Oh, I keep calling it the Wraith King series. The first book is called The Wraith King. The series is called The Rise of Northgall. And she was at the Spicy Spells and Sultry Tales panel. If you want to cue her up, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Juliette Cross, and I write paranormal and fantasy romance, and I write light stuff, dark stuff, spicy, all spicy. And yeah, that is basically what I write.
And for people who have listened to us, she's the author who wrote the Wolf Gone Wild that we raved over a lot. So Juliette, how would you define Romantasy?
For me, Romantasy is both an escape from reality, but also a way to even enjoy, happiness and love in a different way, in an exciting way. And it also does touch on reality. It just offers it in different environment, if that makes sense.
Escapism, yes.
Escapism is my favorite.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You guys have to talk to her too, right? Didn't you?
Yeah, she was pretty much sold. She was. I think. Did we catch her assistant going to Barnes and Noble or something like that to re-up?
Oh wow.
So yeah, Juliette Cross was actually, I think, one of the first tables when we walked in.
Stuffed in a corner.
Yeah, they stuffed, but they did her dirty on day 2. But she made the best of it, and she had quite a lot when we started, and I was like, my extrovert hadn't kicked in, so we passed by very quickly, and I think that's when you guys did the interview. We circled back much later, maybe after the second panel. She didn't do any panels while we were there, but she was almost completely sold out. And so Jonathan really wanted, something signed by her. So I started up and I was like, hey, we love you so much. And my husband sent me over to get a book, and she's like, your husband reads my books? And we all collectively laughed about it. And I said, oh yeah, he's, we're both big fans. He's a big fan. And she goes, can I meet him? And so I had to drag him over so that they could chat. And she did. She very kindly signed a book for us, and it was a very pleasant and happy experience. I was a little starstruck. I think because she was the first table we passed by, aside from my extrovertism, is I was a little starstruck because we loved her book so much. I devoured that whole series. So yeah, it was such a nice experience, and she was so sweet. And they did laugh while we were there about her being sold out. And I think what they mentioned was that she had some of the books in the gift shop. And I think as we were leaving, we saw someone with I don't know for sure they were a stack of her books, but it looked like the colorful books that were her Stay a Spell series. And so I was like, oh my God, did they have to go to the gift shop of the hotel to buy her books?
Oh, wow.
To bring them to the convention. It's very unconfirmed. It was something, that we laughed about in the best way, right? Because we were big fans, and I would have liked to buy more of her books, but she was sold out of the Wraith King by the time we got there, and most of the Stay a Spell series was sold out by the time we got there.
Oh, wow.
One thing I did learn from her is they read well as standalone books, so you don't have to read them all in a specific order, which makes me delighted for her holiday book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can definitely, like, I think you get enough out of having read maybe even just the first book that you would still enjoy the holiday book. It's short, it's like a novella, and it's little, almost like short stories, vignettes of the different characters. It's a good, easy, little fun read. Yeah, it's a good holiday read, for sure.
So one of the authors that we did get to talk to was R.L. Perez. And we had the burning question that had been bothering some of us since we read
Ivy and Bone.
And the listeners may remember the main character was half covered in tattoos, which prompted Jonathan to wonder.
Some of us.
Yeah, some of us to wonder, did that include everything? So here's what she had to say.
And this is a spicy question. Okay, so, because there's 4 of us on the podcast, there's 2 married couples, and the dude, our friend was like, I need to know, when you say he was tatted all the way down, is he tatted all the way down? Is it halfway?
Yes and no. Not unlike the appendage itself, but yes, on like all the leg and the rear and everything. Yes.
You guys heard it here. We got it from the source. We have our questions answered.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a no, that he does not have
right,
a half
not
tattooed
on the
dick.
member. Yes, because Prue would have noticed. Would have been like, huh. It would have been brought up. Yes.
Got it.
So straight from the author's mouth, Jonathan.
I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed.
You were hoping for the tatted dick?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go and I have to go scrub it off now. I thought we had something in common.
You guys know.
So, Jonathan, you're going to have to retroactively lower your rating on Ivy and Bone now?
No, I'm going to leave it the same. I still enjoyed it. I do wish there. You know what? There's hope for a tat dick in the future. Like, it just because he doesn't have it now doesn't mean they can't have it tomorrow.
So there's hope for Cyrus.
Yes, 100%.
Another one of the authors we talked to is Grace Draven, who wrote the Radiance book that we just reviewed. Her and her husband were there, and we got to talk to them a little bit and tell them, we just reviewed the book, the podcast, and everything. But I think we got a little snippet from Grace Draven as well, too, didn't we, Kelly?
Hi, my name is Grace Draven. I am the author of Fantasy Romance. Probably my best-known book and series is Radiance, which is the first in the Wraith King series. And you can find me on most of the usual spots. So Facebook, Instagram, the grocery store. So come by and see me, even at the grocery store. Bye.
That sounds like an invitation to come and stalk you. So we may take you up on that. How would you define Romantasy?
I think it's a marriage between fantasy elements and world building, and of course the romance between the couple. And I think if you can do 50-50, between the fantasy and the romance, where you can just hit that sweet spot, because those of us who loved fantasy want to have that additional, couple interaction, and then those of us who love romance love the whole, alter reality kind of thing, these wonderful fantasy worlds we can escape to. So I think it's this perfect blending of these two genres.
Yeah, so there were several other authors we talked to. We obviously didn't get to talk to every single author. So
and we also got to talk to several vendors, which was interesting. Trim up all of these little interviews we had, and we're going to attach them to the end of this podcast so you can listen to all of them. Most of them are short, about a minute or so it doesn't take too long to listen to all of them.
Hi, I'm Allie Stewie. I have a duology called the Divide Duology. First book is Blood of Desiderium. Second book is Soul of Salvation. You can find me on my social medias at Book by Allie. Basically, it's a fae princess whose father took her power and kind of keeps her hidden, and she finds a way to break free and realizes there's all these lies and twisted truths, and she doesn't know which way, like what is right and what is wrong. She stumbles upon a vigilante, and a dark prince comes into play, and she realizes there's these things called the corrupted that are trying to consume the land, and she has to try and save her people and herself from this darkness. And yeah, it has a happy ending, I promise.
Okay, that's also very good.
Yes.
And what is your definition of Romanacy?
I would say my definition of Romanacy is a very magical outlook on love and everything that kind of makes you feel warm and gushy inside.
Very nice.
Yes.
I have a small business called Fabled Coffee. It is all book-themed coffee, fresh roasted in small batches. We have all of the, all the different like flavored coffee, non-flavored coffee, whole bean, decaf, everything. And we also do handmade stoneware mugs based around books.
And what's the best place for people to find you?
On our website, fablegroundscoffee.com. We are solely e-commerce.
And how would you define Romantasy?
I personally define it as fantasy where the main plot point is romance.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, we're House of Fables. We've come here all the way from Australia, and you can find us at houseoffables.com. And we've got some bookish merch. We've got a lot on pre-order, including some officially licensed When the Moon Hatched designs. We've got a great book club as well, so check us out.
And then this part is voluntary. You can answer it or not. How would you define Romanacy? What do you think Romanacy is?
I'll give you this one.
I'll give you the hard one.
Ooh. Sam is so the right person to answer this question.
I know, she's the best for this one.
Yes.
I think Romantasy is the perfect blend of a fantasy plot in a fantasy world with achingly beautiful romance that brings it all together and gives the plot so much purpose and heart.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then just to reiterate, where people can find you, it's House of Fables.
So House of Fables _PR at Instagram and TikTok. Yeah, and I think there's a period between house, it's like house.of.fables _PR. You'll be able to find us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Anything else about the con? Anybody wants to say or thoughts or anything?
If you're interested in going, I would say think about booking your tickets sooner rather than later because it did sell out pretty early, the one we just went to. So I don't know when this one will sell out, but it could sell out within the next few months since the tickets are already on sale.
And also pay attention when you're buying tickets because the same company, Fabled Fantasy Events, they do an Orlando event and they do a Los Angeles event. So make sure you're buying tickets for the one you want to go to, for the coast that you're going to be on. Thanks for listening to Of Swords and Soulmates. Before we go, make sure to check the show notes, rate, review, and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. It helps others to find us. Follow us on Instagram at Of Swords and Soulmates, or join our Facebook page, Of Swords and Soulmates, or check out our website, ofswordsandsoulmates.com. We're also on YouTube and TikTok, all same username everywhere. You can follow us on Goodreads. And if you'd like to offer a suggestion for future read, future rapid fire question, if you want to agree with something we said, disagree with something, whatever. If you want to interact with us, please feel free to reach out to us on any of those options. We hope you'll join us for our next episode where we're going to be talking about A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson.